everyone got it. We're now recording. So everyone, I should point out that we are recording this so that people who aren't able to join us tonight are able to come and have a look through the forum. If you don't wish for your picture to be shown, can I suggest turning off the camera? Of course, you're happy to speak up as we go along. Now that we're recording, I will switch over to my screen. I will ask everyone, if you don't have a question at the time, could you be so kind just to keep your microphone on mute, please? Whoever might have the washing machine going. No one's got a washing machine. All right, there we go. Cool. Okay, so this is Scouts Terrain. Now, Scouts Terrain is a brand new system built from the absolute ground up. You may all have experience with other systems that have been built for social clubs, sports clubs, or otherwise that have been amended to be able to cope with scouting awards and programs. Some of you may have heard of Pioneer Tracker. Whilst they're all helping us manage scouting, none of them are quite like Scouts Terrain. This has been built from the absolute ground up specifically for our youth program across Australia. It is worth pointing out that everybody in Scouts who's an adult leader, adult member, or a youth member will be given access to Scouts Terrain. There is no opt-out or opt-in in that once it's turned on, it's available to everybody. Some of you have probably already fully embraced the new youth program that we've been rolling out for the last year and a half, 2 years. Some of you may have groups which are still yet to start transitioning to the new youth program. That's okay. Scouts Terrain has something here for both, for everyone to be able to use, but will also help you with the journey as you go through. So let's start with where I've logged in. How do I log in? You'll all need your Scouts Queensland membership number, and we'll provide you, and the initial log on will be your date of birth. Please don't go and try logging on yourself now. Your details have not yet been loaded. We are expecting that around mid-September, pending the final testing and bug fixing which is going on now. So in Basecamp, this is what we call Basecamp, and this is where everything starts. Now, of course, I'm a Joey leader, so I start with a Joey leader, but you can change the theming of Basecamp based on whichever section you work within. Certainly as you get into some of the older sections, you'll notice that the pictures change, the theming changes, and we try to keep everything as age appropriate as possible. And much to the chagrin of at least my venturer, if you do make it all the way through to Rover Scouts, that's when you get the four-wheel drive into the picture. So Basecamp is essentially your central menu. It's from here that you can map out your entire journey. I should point out, I have got everything prepped in the Joey section, but the functions work just like the program is one program across all sections. Scouts Terrain works the same way across all sections. And so from here, we can track milestones. We can do our intro to scouting and introduction to section. We can keep track of our special interest area projects. We can keep a tab on our outdoor adventure skills, adventurous journey, personal development course, ultimately leading us towards our peak award for each section. So how do we get started? Well, if I'm a youth member, we're an outdoor organisation. Let's go and keep track of some of our outdoor adventure skills. So I've clicked on our outdoor adventure skills, and here we've got our 3 core OAS areas and our 6 specialist areas. And you can see the journey that you go on along the way. We might say we're going to go and work on our bushcraft. By the way, if your screens are not keeping up with my screens, please feel free to call out and I'll slow down. I can come through here to bushcraft and I can see all the various stages and the branching in the OAS areas as I progress through the different stages. We've just started our journey in scouting, so we're going to go and complete bushcraft stage 1. So Bushcraft Stage 1, we have all of the I statements for both plan, do, and review. And finally, at the end, we have some verification. I'll come back to that in just a few moments. As you go through with your youth members, they might say that they've gone and they can say, yep, I know what's important to stick to the trails. I know the buddy system. And we might say, are you really sure you understand why you need to stop when you get on activities? Each of the I statements has an information thing, and we have what's called an achievement guide. The achievement guide is a statement to help you interpret what the youth member should be able to do in order to get that I statement ticked off. For the core outdoor adventure skill areas, we're assuming that most leaders will probably be fairly familiar with the standards that are expected. But say you're doing one of the specialist areas like Alpine, you can actually go and download the page. They're just being loaded up at the moment, so that you can print that out to give to an external assessor, say a ski school instructor, that your youth members wanting to learn how to ski and get their Alpine Stage 1 and 2 whilst on a family skiing holiday. At the end of the day, you keep working through and you can tick off your I statements just as you would if you're using a paper book at the moment. You might say, right, I think I finished those off and I want to verify that those items have been done. So we can add a verifier. Now, a verifier can be another Scout member, or it can be someone who's outside of the organisation. Let's see if I will do this test because I know they've just did a big update to the system. Okay. And I can now add my verifier in. Just going to quickly check because I saw somebody coming into the meeting. I just had someone come into the meeting. Just be a moment. Sorry. There we go. Just had the next person come back in. Welcome to the demo. We'll continue on. I will ask if you could be so kind just to keep your microphone on mute, but if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to come off mute and ask as we go. We're just going through the outdoor adventure skills. We've just gone through and we've ticked off the items which we've said that the youth members achieved, and we've recorded who's verified that the youth member has achieved them and a date. And you'll notice that those items are now greyed out because they've been approved. If as part of a leader review, you decide that maybe actually we should redo that one, you can actually go and remove the verifier details and make that item reopen to be reassessed at a later date. Like all good record systems, you don't have to save everything all at once. You can save and exit. You'll notice up in the top right-hand corner, it says we've saved some statements for Bushcraft 1, and we can see that we're currently working on Bushcraft Stage 1 here in our OAS record. When it comes time to continue work on our Bushcraft Stage 1, we can come back in. We can see which elements have been verified. We might go on a camp, for example, and we might then say, right, let's go and finish off all of our do's. Bang, 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 bang. And because at the end of the camp we did a bit of a review, I can say that we've done that one. And I can now go and put my verifier in for that one. And I'll say it was Nick 0444 554 666. Add my verifier. And as part of verifying, I can, we always say make sure your OAS logbook is up to date for any hikes or other activities that you want to keep account of. And if you want to upload any supporting documents, such as photographs or maps or plans, you can attach pretty much anything up to 10 meg in size against your particular record. And remember, that is stored as part of the youth member's actual record for achieving this stage. Yes.
Is the logbook part of terrain, or is it a separate item?
As of this time last night, we were told that the logbook should be available to launch when the rest of the system launches in late September. Yes.
Thanks.
And then when that happens, that will also keep a track of kilometres, nights under canvas and the like as well for walkabout and camper badges.
Quick question.
Yes.
If one of your supporting documents is larger than 10 megabytes, is there a way around this?
Short answer, no.
Fair enough.
Long answer, if it's more than 10 megabytes, that's one heck of a Word document. I'll quite happily admit that I have some Word documents that are multiple megabytes in size, but if I go and file save as PDF, they generally come down to half a meg in size.
Yeah, all good.
Yep. Any other questions? And by the way, questions are good questions. Cool. So you'll probably recall that under the youth program, whenever you're looking to complete an award, it's always youth leading, adult supporting. So we need to submit our stage verification up to unit council for approval. So you'll notice at the bottom, there isn't a award OAS, it's actually submit for stage progression. And when we click on that button, it will save, thank you, making sure that it did actually do what I wanted it to do. And it will actually submit for, there we are, and it's submitted for Bushcraft Stage 1. So that's now put into, for our unit council to go and start doing the approval process for us. Let's see if I can shortcut. Nope, we've got a couple of people joining us. I'll just quickly go and let them in. Hello and welcome to the Terrain webinar. What I will ask, if you could be so kind, just to keep your microphone on mute unless you have a question. Happy to take questions as we go. We're just at the point of finishing the outdoor adventure skills section. Happy to take any new questions at the end if you want to go back through that afterwards. So you can be working on multiple outdoor adventure skills at the same time, and you can be working on multiple stages at the one time as far as the system is concerned. However, you can't be awarded stage 2, obviously, until you've been awarded stage 1. So you might say, well, how do I actually go and, hang on, come back to this one, approvals. How do we actually go about approving a stage progression? So what we'll do is we'll actually come into our approvals engine. And I just heard someone else join us. Let's just quickly let them join. Sorry. So approvals, if I could ask who would join us, just to be so kind to keep your microphone on mute. If you have a question, please take it off mute and join us at the time. So I'm using a test user here. And so although my name's Nick, I'm actually Kelly when it comes to this particular system. And you'll see here's a list of approvals which have been submitted to Unit Council for sign off and recognition. So I can come in here and I can now review that Kelly's put in an outdoor adventure skill that needs to be reviewed. So let's go and have a view of that. And I can see that Kelly's coming in for stage 1 bushcraft. I can see who's verified each of the tasks, each of the I statements. If we had any attachment documents, I could see those here. And ultimately, as I get down towards the bottom of the page, I can go approve. Let's go approve. You say, are you sure you want to approve? Absolutely, I can approve. See, the request is approved. I come back and here's my outdoor adventure skill, which is approved. For those of you, you may have noticed it hasn't actually disappeared. It hasn't been awarded. Why is it still grey? Scouts Terrain is designed to ensure that there's a couple of checks and balances in there. In order for something to be approved by Unit Council, it actually takes at least 2 members of Unit Council to approve it. And at least of the Unit Council, at least 1 must be the supervising adult. For those who, I've had a few questions from leaders in the past saying, what about other QA reviews? I would like to remind everyone that whilst you can have youth members on Unit Council, more than 2 members in Unit Council signing off, it still takes the leader to go and actually physically buy the badge from the Scout shop. Just quickly let that person in. There we go. So this submit and approve process is consistent across all of the different things that happen. So whether that be any of the outdoor adventure skills, your adventurous journey, your personal development course, your special interest area badges, the same, submit to unit council approves, at least 2 members, away we go from there. Any, I was going to say, questions about, yes, questions about OAS and approvals.
So will the unit council be in themselves, are they able to, on their members page, are they able to say that they are part of the unit council, and will they get a notification to say that something needs approving, or is it a matter of each week they go in and check what approvals need to be done?
No, youth members cannot vote themselves onto unit council. The adult leader has to allocate that to them. As far as notifications are concerned, I honestly can't remember that answer. I do know that when you do, if you are on unit council, in the menu on the left-hand side here, which will have quite a few more functions in it when we release it, you'll have the approvals menu option. And that will bring you into this page here.
Yeah, so that's what I meant before. So if you're part of the unit council, on your members page, it will actually say that you're part of it. Is that right?
Yeah, you won't see, youth won't see members.
Okay.
I'll explain that in a few moments. What they will see if they're on unit council, they will see something which says, get the right page back, Nick. They'll have approvals over here, and that will bring you into the approvals page.
All right, thank you.
That's okay. I should point out you can actually see the history because I've never actually finished the full approval cycle because I've only got the one test user account. You can see the full who approved what for your unit at all times as well.
Hey Nick, quick question about verifications. Yep. So obviously with the old system, we had signatures required. You'd get your examiner to sign off.
Yes.
With this, is there any format for signatures?
Essentially, no, but yes. What do you mean? Don't need the physical signatures. It does record who has done the approve and who's done the reject. So if you're a district leader or region leader and you're looking through the youth members who signed off what, you can actually come in here and say who signed off that particular activity.
Only issue I see with that though is, like, God forbid Scouts try to do this, but you might get some members who just write down, the examiner's name without actually speaking to them.
Sorry. There is that risk from that verification stage, is recording someone who did the verification. But when it comes to the unit council actually approving it, we do keep a log as to which user, which person has logged in and approved that awarding or approved that activity. So if you're looking at who approved OAS stage 1, bushwalking stage 1, you'll be able to come into the history and see who actually approved that at the time.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Cool.
Hey, Nick, Jenny here.
Yes.
The approvals, how do they get to the approval page? Do the youth members have to go in there and put them in somehow?
The short answer is there will be a menu option here. So what you're seeing at the moment is a pre-release version of Scouts Terrain. We don't have the full menu active here on the left-hand side. So I'm using some shortcuts, which I know, in order to show the functions to you. But they will just have a normal menu on the left-hand side, like you would with many other websites and applications you may have dealt with in the past. And they'll just be able to click on approvals, and in they come.
And so do the individual youth members go in and submit that for approval?
Absolutely. So when you come into where have we got the OAS, they can come into their OAS stage. And when the youth member feels that they've actually completed their thing, they can submit to review. Now, you'll notice that this one I can't put it back into submit to review because it's already been submitted. If I went and did, say, bushcraft stage, I'll go and open up stage 2. You'll notice I have this submit for stage progression button. So yes, the youth member themselves can submit to say, hey, I think I've now achieved OAS stage 2, and submit that up to unit council for approval.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nick.
That's okay.
Just a quick question from me. For units that have already benchmarked for OAS, how will that work with Scouts Terrain? Will they have to go through each individual stage again and resubmit that?
Hold that thought for a couple of moments, and I'll explain that very shortly, if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions? Yep.
Yeah, Fiona here. Yeah, I just had a question about the verification bits. That obviously, we've got the 2-up sort of system.
Yes.
It's not going to pull that automatically anywhere. Like, so somebody's got to know that that person was 2-up when they write in their name and phone number and everything, isn't it? It's not going to automatically pick that up.
That's my understanding, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think it's, especially as you get towards, you might be working on stage 3, but assisting someone who's getting stage 1. So a senior cub helping a Joey, for example. You won't actually have your stage 3 yet because you're working on it you've got to teach them in order to achieve it. You're working on your 2-up.
Yeah, you have to have got your stage 3 in order to sign off a stage 1, though, haven't you?
Actually, you're right. So I should have made that a stage 4, trying to.
Yeah.
You definitely have to. You definitely have to teach a junior person from stage 4 onwards. That's for sure.
Yeah. The other completely sort of random question is the logbook that you mentioned that might be available. Would that just be an OAS logbook, or would it be sort of a logbook style that you can keep a record of, like, all the things you've been doing in, like, you know, different days you attended, you know, some community activity or things like that?
Hold that thought as well for a few moments, Fiona.
Sure.
Cool. Any other questions around OAS and the general approval process before I move on to programming? Now to members, and we'll let Danny in. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go on to members next. So how do I know who actually works in my, who's in my group, and how do I make sure, I don't run out of battery? Gets embarrassing very quickly. So how do I know who's actually in my unit? So first things first, we have, if you're an adult member, you will get to see the members menu item. It's the one menu item that's currently working in Terrain. That's mainly due to the fact that we're currently trying to transition groups in other states that are using a system called Pioneer Tracker. Pioneer Tracker runs out on Monday, so we're madly focusing as an organisation trying to transition those groups off Pioneer Tracker onto Scouts Terrain by Monday. That's why we're worrying about most of Queensland in mid-September, because it just allows us to deal with the more urgent need now. And you're thinking, wow, we've got all these members. We've got them all in Scouts Terrain. Fantastic. Where the heck did they come from? The good news here is SMS. So if you want to create a new user ID or a new member in SMS in Terrain, create them in SMS. What happens is all the members' details from SMS get synchronized down to a system called Members Admin, which is run nationally, and then from there it gets synchronized into Scouts Terrain. If you add a new member into SMS, about 36 hours later, they will appear in Scouts Terrain, assuming everything runs to plan. You'll notice here that we've just got some basic details. We know their membership number, we know their names, we know their which unit they should be in, whether they're a unit leader, an adult, whether what section do they belong in. date of birth, and whether they're active. We're going, cool, that sounds great. Now, the person who asked the question about benchmarking before, when we go through the setup process, you will be able to go through and import data. And I will be doing a whole specific workshop on this in a couple of weeks. And I'll set it up for probably the Wednesday night before we get access to the system, where I'll go through all of the different achievements, where you basically preload all of the achievements. So in this case, you can go through and say, I'm in the Joey Scout section. I have done my introduction to section, and I can add that in and say what date that was, was that awarded. Now, someone might say, hang on, I don't know every single date that everyone got every single badge. Is it really that important? Probably not. As long as it is keeping a track of what has somebody achieved before. You might say, I've got these outdoor adventure skills. I can say that they've actually finished bushcraft stage 1. I'm going to put that in. I'm going to make my data conversion easy. I'm just going to say anything that gets been previously awarded, I'm just going to say was awarded on the 1st of August. And they achieved that one in Cub Scouts, and they achieved that one in Joey Scouts. You can go through and do all of the different OAS badges. You can do all of the peak awards. You can do special interest area awards. There is a fair, so the idea is that anyone who's got previous achievements that you want to make sure are recorded in the system, you don't have to go through the whole system. You can do this as a one-time load. Once you're finished, you submit all the achievements and they get recorded in the system automatically for you. There, you say, yeah, we've done everything. I should point out that when you do the data import, it is a one-time job. So essentially, make sure that you're comfortable that you've got it right before you press the save button. So if we now go into, if I was able to jump into Melissa, we'll notice that the data import is complete, so we can't update her anymore. It means that if you then finally, if you realise, actually she got bushwalking stage 3, you can go back in and go through the normal process to tick off stage 3 OAS.
Thank you.
That's cool. Now you might be saying, okay, that's really cool, but I need to make sure that I've got everyone in the section. What happened to Kelsey down here? We don't actually have a section for Kelsey or Troy. What's going on there? Well, what we do is we're just currently looking at our group level. What we can then do is come down and have a look at our units. Now, of course, everyone has 5 units in their team, in their group. Some have less, some have more. In this particular case, I'm going to go, how old was that person? 20. So we make that, they're going to become a rover unit. We can come into our rover unit and we can now see who is actually in our rover unit and what patrols that they actually belong to. We can go and add a member, and we can select someone from inside our group and move them into the rover unit. I think it was Cameron Perez was the person that didn't belong anywhere at the time. We can say, right, Cameron, you're now going to be in the group. You'll notice here that we actually have this thing where you can say select members from outside your group. And that's because we can actually make a hybrid section. So for those where you've got venturer units or rover units where members belong to individual groups, but you then run as a hybrid unit, you can actually add any member from any group anywhere in Australia into your unit. All you need to know is their branch and their membership number, and they'll come through. Once you've done that, you just press add, and Cameron's now being added into our rover unit where he wasn't before. If you want to come back and you want to start organising patrols, you can start organising your patrols and say, okay, let's go and have a look at, you can set up your patrols when you're in units, and we'll come to our Scout unit. We can see here are all the members who are in our Scout unit. We can see whether they're a Scout, a unit leader, PL or APL, and we can assign which patrol they actually belong into. Finally, we can also say which members are actually part of unit council. So if this, now that I've just let Tyler become part of unit council, the next time Tyler logs in, they'll actually see that approvals menu item to allow them to start approving things on unit council. As you go, I should point out that Terrain is a one-way deal from SMS, in that SMS will send through the member details through to Terrain, but Terrain does not move the unit progressions back to SMS. So if you do have someone who has moved up from, say, Cubs to Scouts, you can move them up in Terrain at any time that you like, but you still need to progress them in SMS to move them from one section to the next. Any questions about members, units, groups, unit councils before I change topics?
Nick, two questions, if that's okay. If
Please.
you move a youth member up in SMS, you said it's a one-way feed. Is it repeatedly fed, or is it a once-off feed? So if you move them up in SMS, would it automatically change in Terrain?
It runs every night. So at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I think it is, so it's either 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, we send the data from Queensland down to National. And then at about 2:30 in the afternoon, National loads the data into Terrain.
Great. And so in the terms of this bit that you're looking at now with the Scout unit, it's the Scout section leader that's approving the unit members and doing all of the member details. So it's section leader responsible, not group leader responsible.
That's how I believe it's designed to run, yes.
Excellent, thank you.
I do know we've got I haven't tested that specific level of security tracking yet. But I do know that that's an adult role, and from a responsibility point of view, it should be the section leader or leaders in the section.
Lovely, thanks very much.
Hey Nick, just a quick question. As a youth helper, is there any kind of, I guess, permissions we can get to assist our own leaders with patrol management through Terrain?
Yes. So depending on how you're recorded as a helper, depends on how it happens. So there's a few different answers to that question. So if you're a youth program supporter, i.e. the type of person who's not actually a member of Scouts Queensland, no, you will not have access to Terrain because you don't have access to any of the other systems. If you are a youth helper, you will have youth access to that unit, just like any other youth member would. If you're an adult member, and if as part of your membership you're also a rover, you are considered an adult member. You then have the same capabilities as an adult leader. So, so rovers are flagged as, they're treated as a youth member from the rover program perspective, but they're an adult member from a being able to supervise other youth members' perspective and updating Terrain records.
Would there be a way to kind of create a youth helper role? As I know, quite a few of the youth helpers would be able to support their leaders who might not be as technologically trained. So then, would there be a role that we could kind of be given, someone we can actually assist, putting people to their patrols and all that kind of stuff?
Okay, I'm going to answer this part two ways as well. My day job is in information technology, so And the official line that I have to do both in that role and the Scouts role is sharing of user IDs is bad. However, that doesn't mean two people can't sit down together and work together to do something. So you could have, for example, a youth helper coaching, supporting, helping the leader with updating records, for example. It should be noted that the way Scouts Terrain is designed is to be youth leading, adult supporting, in that particularly for the older sections, so Scouts, Rovers, Adventurers, Rovers, it is designed for the youth members to complete their own OAS stages and SIA plans, rather than the leaders recording that for them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. From you do bring up something which I didn't mention before. When we were doing the initial testing, I did actually ask the question about, for cubs and in particular joeys, how does that work? Because let's be honest, a lot of joeys are learning how to read, let alone how to use an app or a website. So they are actually working on at the moment what we call the bulk leader load capability, and that will allow, for example, if you're a joey leader, such as myself, and you've got 6 joeys that have gone on camp, and together as a unit you've achieved bushwalking stage 1, rather than having to go in and log in as 6 different joeys and submit all 6 different items, as a leader you're able to go in and mark off those OAS progressions on behalf of those youth through a central form all at once. That function's being developed at the moment, and I think we're due to see it for testing next week. Any other questions around members? Okay. So let's, you might be saying, okay, Nick, that all sounds really good, but we haven't actually done that much on the new youth program yet. We've sort of done the benchmarking, we've sort of done this, but we really haven't got into it, let alone that whole milestones, participate, assist, leads stuff. Really haven't got into any of that yet, Nick. Is terrain, do I need to get through, where did I leave it? Here it is. How do I, is terrain really going to be that useful for me? And I'd say, actually, it absolutely will be useful for you. So we have this, part of the system is programming. So programming at the simplest point of view, I'm pretty sure you're all a heck of a lot more familiar with it than I am. You have your activities that you're running across different groups. But how does terrain actually do that? Well, first of all, anybody can come in, and this includes any youth member, can come in at any time and propose an idea. What does propose an idea mean? It is exactly that. It's here's an activity that I'd like to do as part of Scouts. It can be something which is done as a group, a unit, a patrol, or even as a project patrol. So let's go and create one now. Now I'll try and, let's go and say, we're going to go and do indoor rock climbing at Crank. Because that's always a good fun activity, especially for joeys, because they've got nice kid ones as well. Indoor climbing night at Crank McGregor. Why? We're going to do OAS, vertical, like tight, that would be great. Stage 1. Who's going to organise this activity? Bear. Okay, Bear's going to organise it because he's the cool leader that we all like doing things with. We'll call it an outdoor challenge. And let's say I've got a flyer and I'm going to just attach that flyer here as what I'm going to do as part of my pitch. And I'm just going to send my idea off to Unit Council. You say, are you sure you want to send it off to Unit Council? You can go, yeah, please send it off to Unit Council. So as different youth members come up with different ideas, they can fire off as many different ideas as they like. And you can see that you've sent that proposal off to Unit Council. So Unit Council comes along and you start doing, it's only a couple of weeks left of term 3. So you go and say, right, we should start thinking about what are we actually going to do at term 4? What what have people proposed for term 4? Oh, cool. Looks like we've got a whole stack of things out here. We're going to go for a night hike. We're going to do a bear hunt. We're going to go for a paddle up the river. Okay, someone's being funny there. But we're going to have a look at our indoor rock climbing at Crank. So let's go and have a look at this particular activity. We can click on view. We can say, okay, we're going to go and do Crank. Oh, stage 1 vertical. That sounds like a great idea. Outdoor challenge. I think we should, unit council, yep, should we do that? Absolutely. Let's assign an organizer. So now we're going to come back into the activity and we're now moving into the plan phase. So there's 2 parts to planning. So we're just going to go through and review and say, yep, that's what we're going to do. Now we're going to go and do our plan. So we're going to say that we're going to do this as a project patrol. And as a project patrol, we can now go and select any member from our section to join this particular activity. But we might find that actually we've got a really good mate who's at the other scout group up the street. We want to add them into that activity as well. Well, guess what? We can do that. All we need is which branch and their membership number. And here's one that I prepared earlier. Hopefully I got my numbers right. I can add my participant. It looks it up. Yay! And we're going to add James into the activity. Even though he's not normally part of our group, we can certainly form a project patrol across groups simultaneously.
Nick, is there any integration with Operoo for like permission forms and stuff?
Not at this time that I'm aware of.
Cool.
Well, that's a really good one. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd solve a lot of my problems.
Okay. I might just get you to drop me an email to bc.joeys
Cool.
at Scouts Qld and let me fire that up the system and find out for you.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, mate.
Because that's actually a really good idea. I like that one. So as we go through the planning, you remember before we just said we could just put whatever text in we wanted to. Now we've got to say who's actually going to organise this activity. And you'll notice it's one of the 4 people we said are going to participate in the activity. So for those of you who might be still freaking out about participate, assist, leads, we've got our 4 participates. Rebecca is now our lead. And again, we can upload our supporting files, whether they be our F31 risk assessment, our C5 approvals, C4s if you're still using the manual ones. Good thing about the Operoo, we can say we're going to go to Crank. What is that? That's Kessels Road, McGregor. We're going to start that on a weeknight, so let's do that. I'm actually going to do it for next week because I need some activities for September in here now. So I'm just going to put in a time. We're going to start at 7 p.m. and we're going to finish on next Wednesday, and we'll finish at say 10 p.m. and click next. So now we can see that we've submitted by Albatross Patrol. Kelly's submitted it. Rebecca's going to organise it. We now know who's going to be doing it. And we can add our activity to the calendar. Why did something go wrong?
I think you've got 10 a.m. rather than 10 p.m.
Yep, I did. Thank you. One of the glitches they're still working on is getting the AM PM thing right. Come on, you can do it. 10 p.m. 12 p.m. No, you are going to make my life a living heck, aren't you? There we go. It's a really long. Yep. Oh, come on. 7 a.m.
You might have to type 22.
Yeah, that's one of the time thing is one of the glitches I know they're working on at this moment. Again, I would like to re-emphasize that this is still in development. So I had to go through and rerun through my demonstration just this afternoon because they released a whole stack of new functionality last night. Now let's try. This should work this time. Yay! Our plan has been added to the calendar. Fantastic. So I can go through now to Wednesday the 2nd, and of course, I can see here's my activity in the calendar, and the calendar is visible to all. So I can come in here and I can see my activities. I can now go and complete my plan. And I'm going to say that it's going to be Rebecca's going to be leading the activity. I can say that Stephanie's going to assist. We can put any schedules for our other bits and pieces. So this is where you have a camp, for example. So you might have a camp that runs several days, but that camp might constitute 2 or 3 different activities that you're going to have through. So you can have different people assisting and leading that camp. So let's take a Joey sleepover or a Cub camp, Scout camp. You might have different parts of the day or night where you want to be able to award different participates and assists. You can break the activity down. We can then say, just for statistics, we say, yep, what part of the Scouts are we going to be doing? We can put any additional notes, finish our plans. Are we sure? And we can then complete the plan. And basically repeat as you go. Now, you might say, okay, we've got our plan. How is that really going to help me? Well, when we come into our activity, now that we've completed the plan, we can come in here and mark our attendance and say, well, who actually showed up? Everybody showed up. I can save that now. And chug. I can now go into my review for this particular activity. So, where are you? Because we haven't actually had the clock run down on this one, I can't go and do the review. But the idea is that if you've marked off your attendance and you complete your review, as soon as you submit conclude your activity, all of the participates, assists, and leads will be allocated to all of the members and their milestone progression as soon as the review is done. How is this going to be helpful for me? Well, if you've got, say, a weekly program, you can set up an activity in your program for each of your week's regular meetings. You've got your attendance record there. You've got your participate, assist, leads. You've got your challenge areas recorded. So you've got all of the elements that you need for recording milestones here just through setting up your program and then marking off your attendance as you go. The review process is very straightforward. You'll notice that it pre-populates who was the leader, who was the assistant. And there's actually only 4 questions. How was the activity? Great, okay, boring. Was it adventurous, fun, challenging, or inclusive? You tick off what elements, how did you cover the Scout elements, and how have you grown? And we don't need war or peace. It's literally a sentence for each. And that just shows as a record as to, well, what have you done? What did the youth members actually think of the activity? And if you think about some of the information you could put into your ARPs, you can say, when we did the reviews, 80% of the activities were flagged as being adventurous, or 90 of them were great, and we only had 3 boring activities, and that's because Bear couldn't sing properly at the campfire. So it allows us to keep both a record of what the youth have done to achieve, which as we go through and assess peak awards and people's journeys through Scouting, we can see all of this history with them. But it also helps us as group leaders, district leaders, region leaders, to see what's been going on in the groups, so that we know if there's areas that we can, great ideas that we want to replicate, or some groups that might be worth just giving a bit of a check-in chat to. So questions around programming.
Yeah, it's Ed here up in Mariba. I've got a question. Yep. When the assists and leads and participates get distributed, how does the system know which milestone each of those people are actually going for?
Great question. Why don't I pull that one up? I'll bring that up on a different screen. Bang, here we go. So the system keeps a track of which milestone you've achieved or you're working towards. And it basically says, okay, if you've done an outdoor challenge activity and you're a participant, it just adds another outdoor challenge participant to your current milestone. So when you come into milestones, you can see which milestone you're working towards. And as you scroll down, you'll be able to see how many participates against each of the challenge areas you've got, as well as how many assists or leads that you've got in order to achieve this particular milestone. So this is the view that you would see if you were the youth member. We have another function which is still being finalised called Group Life, and Group Life will actually show us for the group or the unit how youth are progressing. So if you've got a youth member who, for example, is 2 participate or 2 assists or 2 leads away from their milestone 3, you'll be able to see that on a dashboard to see where your youth members are up to and which ones need to have certain activities in order to help them achieve their next milestones, or even up to their peak award as we go through that way. So it keeps a track and visibility on each step.
So if a new club joins at the age of 10 and they're allocated to a milestone 3, do you actually allocate them to that milestone 3?
Absolutely. So it will keep a track as to which milestone you're actually in.
Nick, I had a couple of questions. Hi, it's Alan Brake here that I posted in the chat. I don't know if you can see the chat and answer those questions.
Sorry, I'm not able to see the chat whilst I'm sharing my screen, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, I can read them out. That's all right. So just back on the attendance register, can you add attendance like linking cubs or visitors on the F6 or parents that come along to help? That's always been a shortcoming of Scout Central, and particularly important now with COVID to actually really record who was there on the night.
So when it comes to the activity, you can add let's start again. Short answer, no, for all of those extras, because they need to be a member in the system in order to be able to have a record in Terrain. The long answer is if you have visiting scouts from another unit or another group joining you for this particular activity, when you do the planning, you can add them into the plan. In fact, you can add anyone from any branch into any activity.
Yes, that's probably not normally the situation we're dealing with, but say somebody comes along on an F6 form and you want to record that they were there that night.
Yeah, no, the short answer is
no. Okay.
Short answer is no. We did have a concept of a temporary member, but I think that's been parked for a while. A temporary member was someone that you could record for 1 or 2 weeks whilst their new member application was going through.
Yeah, no, I think just even like a note field for the night or something to be able to say, okay, we had these extra people or something like that, that would be helpful in the review.
There is certainly nothing stopping you attaching the F6s or similar documents as attachments to that activity if that's how you would like to record them.
Okay, well, that's useful to know. The question too, I just was looking through the review where you did the review and the activities and whatever, and I didn't quite follow it, but we've had a discussion at our DTM about how many activities occur during a night. So and it would depending on Joey's and Scouts and whatever, but The Scout section, it's pretty straightforward that you have to lead a whole night to get a milestone 3 lead. But in Joey's, is it, if you run, say, 3 games during a night and another activity or something, would potentially 3 or 4 Joeys get a lead that night?
So what I've actually been saying in the Joey scenario is let's think this one through. You will generally have somewhere between 35 and 40 weekly activities during the year. You'll probably have 2 or 3 weekend activities at least during the year. So there's plenty of, everybody has at least 30 to 40 opportunities to get a participate assist lead during the year. And you only need 27 at most in order to complete a milestone. So if we go through the maths, you've got opportunities for somewhere between 40 and you've got to be between 40 and 50 opportunities to earn 27 items. My recommendation is that a weeknight is an activity, so you can be the duty Joey for that particular week, and that's your assist or lead. Whereas when you come to sleepovers, weekend activities, things that run for multiple hours or where you have multiple distinct activities or sections during your activity, they feel like multiple items where you can award multiple assists and leads for that activity, similar to what you were describing for Scouts.
Yeah, that sounds very reasonable. That's good. Probably the description of in the OS, not the OS, but the milestone book about the assists and leads is not quite clear enough there in that area.
No, there is quite a bit of grey for interpretation at the moment.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you.
It's okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Nick, I've got 2, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Right back at the start of this, where you were talking about submitting a proposal.
Yep.
When people can go in and see the proposal and decide whether they want to go ahead with that, does it say who has proposed it?
It does. I think. Let's have a look. So yes, you've got view, remove, and when you go and look into view, it does say here who it was submitted by. So Albatross Patrol, Kelly Ware, yes.
Awesome. And the second question was, once they've proposed it and they've programmed it and they're planning it and they're going through all the systems, they're putting everybody in, they've got their dates, all the rest of it, and say, for example, it's a venture or a rover unit who have now put in a risk assessment, I'm guessing they could upload that as a supporting document. Like,
yes.
Can a leader see everything that's going on in that?
Absolutely. The leaders can see everything that's going on in their unit.
Okay, so everything that would be proposed, a leader can see, and can everyone in the unit see, or only the people that are going to be attending that activity?
Ooh, I think can I get you to fire me that one at bc.joeys as well, please?
Yeah.
Because that's a really, really good one. It was my understanding that everyone in the unit can see the activities in the unit.
Okay.
But as I think that one through, what if you're bringing your friend from the next group across who you've added in manually? Does it show up in their calendar? So very good question. I will ask the team of that tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
If you could find me through an email, that way I know how to make sure I get it back to you afterwards as well.
No worries, thanks.
Look, another question on the calendar. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Another question on the calendar was, is it then published to the web or something so parents can see the calendar directly, or how does that work?
The calendar is visible once you log into Terrain. I do have a question as to whether Terrain calendars can be synchronized off-site, but I don't believe we can at the moment, as in published to group websites, for example. I got asked that one the other night. You will need to, so if families want to look at what's in the calendar, they will need to have their youth member or log in as their youth member into Terrain and then come to programming to see what programs are coming up.
All right, thank you.
I think there was a second question there as well. One thing I didn't actually explain properly before, and I'm going to go and get my, we'll do our paddle up Brisbane River example. You might have a district, for example, that's organising a district camp where several activities on the camp are organised by the district, but other components of the camp are organised by each group or each unit. So as a result, you want to sort of put a skeleton of a plan out, but you actually want each unit to then finalise their own plan around, well, who's the lead for the district camp, who's the lead for this patrol, who's organising different bits and pieces. And you almost want to copy that plan across sites, or alternatively, you might want to save a copy of this activity and then bring it back up in about a year or two later. Every activity at the bottom, you can export. And you can actually export that into a file, and you can now share your activity plans. You'll see that it's a fairly techie file called a JSON, but it essentially saves that file outside of Terrain. You can now email that file, you can share it in communities, and say, for example, you want to bring that back in, we can come into programming and we can now import an activity that we have. Here's one that we planned earlier, and we can now import that activity as a plan to put into our calendar. So if we said something like, and I don't know if we would do it this way, but say, for example, Nighthawk might publish the skeleton of a plan to say it's going to be at Clifton at this location, this time, this date, but you now need to go and plan out for each of your patrols how they're going to get there, get back, what they're going to do, and everything else. And that allows you to share plans and activities across groups or reuse them on later dates as well. Any other questions about programming?
Nick, it's Danny Atkins here. Sorry, I just wanted to ask you, is there any way to limit what the youth can see? So as a scout leader, if I'm putting a program together and there might be a challenge I'm giving the scouts, obviously I would have the answer to that challenge, but I don't want to publish it for them to see the answer. Is there a section to keep separate that scouts can't see as part of your programming?
Short answer, no.
Okay.
Long answer, maybe put the attachment, keep that as an attachment and keep that aside. Good one. If you want me to put that into the list mix for development or check to see if there's something like that, again, fire me through an email. I'll fire it up the chain and I'll get back to you as soon as I've got an answer.
Yeah, I'll do that. Thank you.
Cool. I think there was a second question at the same time.
Yeah, Nick, those programming calendars, are they individual unit calendars, so the Cub Scout, Venture and the like? And if there is individual unit calendars, can then group leaders get access to see what those sections are doing?
My understanding is yes, it is a section or unit-based calendar, and yes, group leaders can see all sections.
Thanks.
Just as districts can see all groups, etc., etc.
Does that include LICs? Because that was a real problem with Scout Central. If you were LIC, you didn't have access that a group leader would have access to.
My understanding is yes. One of the things they've spent a lot of time, probably a good portion of the last 5 weeks on, is mapping appointments to roles. And there's about 570 different appointments nationally that they've had to map into different roles. And I believe, and the roles that they've got are much more simplified. So they're section lead, unit leaders, group leaders, region leaders, etc., etc. as you go through. So, for example, from a terrain point of view, you don't have a Joey leader versus a Scout leader. You just have a leader in the group that is in the Joey unit and a leader that is in the Scout unit. Any other questions about programming? Yes, I heard someone breathe there for a moment.
I just wondered, so a unit leader is like a cub leader or a scout leader, is it?
Yes.
Or is it something else? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The adult unit leader. Yes.
I just wasn't sure whether it was like a sort of a head patrol leader or something.
No, I think I should probably use the phrase section leader then, shouldn't I? I keep getting told off for using. I believe at the last course there was a lolly jar for each time you used the wrong bit of language. So I would have to contribute to that a lot, I think. Okay. Now I did try. Oh, is there somebody else?
Just a quick
one more question.
There's two there. I'll go. Yep.
Yeah, just a quick one. The connection between terrain and Uluru.
Operu.
Okaroo, yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes.
Yep.
The short answer is don't know, don't have the answer, and someone was already kind enough to email me that question. If you wanted to email me that question as well, when I get the answer, I'll get back to you. Unfortunately, I don't have every answer, but I will find the person that does.
But the question I was going to ask was about the attendance records.
Yes.
So we have to program. So if I program out for my entire term, I have to pick who's going to be coming on those programs for the entire term for my section nights. If I get new members who join, say 3 weeks into term, do I have to go back and readjust all those to add them, or can I just do it when I do the review and add a new member at that point?
I don't know. When you do, let's fire me that one through as well. I do know.
I'll send that one too.
When we go through and do the complete plan, so the life cycle of a program is you propose the idea, you then do what we'll call plan stage 1, which basically locks in a date, and then plan stage 2 is where you then go and do the full detail, and maybe it was in plan stage 1. I think it was in plan stage 1. It was where you said that it was whether it was a unit or patrol activity. So this one.
So if it's a unit activity, then they'll just automatically be included, you think?
Yes.
Nice.
Of course. I'll have to find me that one through, and I'll do some checking for you. Yep. Because you can make it a group activity, a unit activity, a patrol activity, or a project patrol activity. And I have to admit, what I've been demonstrating is the project patrol, because that's where you've got youth members from multiple groups potentially joining in your one activity. But that's a really good question. What if you plan an activity, 3 months out for the term, and you've got new members that come through by the end of the term? Will they automatically be there? I like that question, but I don't know the answer. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I will find it for you though.
Thank you.
But what if you've got things that change, obviously, like the lead, the planned lead, doesn't turn up and somebody else takes over and does the leading? Are you able to adjust that later?
Absolutely. So when you come so you can change that at a couple of points. So we can come in when we do the completing of the plan, or what I call step 2 of the plan. This is where you actually lock in who is going to be the leader and who's going to be your assist. I'm just going to jump back out of one to one that I've done previously. And when you come to the review, if I go to my activity that I prepped before, my indoor rock climbing one, well, we can do it. When you come and do the review, you can change who was actually the reviewer, who actually was the. So when you do the review, that's when you confirm who was the lead, who was the assist, and therefore who else gets the participates. So you can change that afterwards.
Okay. And the other question I had leading on from that is, obviously it goes like, who is this activity for? And it's got the names of everybody. Does it kind of know that, like, who you've got selected, like Rebecca there, she's the lead, but she won't get a participate for it? She'll just get a lead, or does she get a lead and a participate?
No, you can only get one of those at a time. So if you, so what it does is it says who's going on the activity. So in this case, we got Stephanie, Mr. Nathan, Rebecca, and James. And then from that 4 people, you then choose who is the lead, which I think was Rebecca, and who was the assist, which was Stephanie, and then the other 2 get the participates.
Okay, cool. So it does it automatically. Good.
Yeah. Cool. So knowing that I was trying to wrap up about 8:30, you may, thank you for all of the questions and the quizzes. You're always keeping your eye on toes, which is great. How do we give you some support? There's a couple of different places to go. So first of all, you can go to the new Youth Program Queensland website, which you may have been familiar with before, and we've now got the Scouts Terrain page. So on the Scouts Terrain page, you can pretty much read a few things. We've gone through most of it tonight. And through here, this is where I've got things such as all the forward forums which I'll set up. All the dates will always be here, and you'll have the links to join the Microsoft Teams meeting here. When I finish the session, I'll save the video. Once the video is processed, give me a couple of days and I'll save the link to the video on this page as well. Okay. If, for example, you're wanting to know, are there any user guides or how do I do videos? Absolutely. Come across, we've got it on this page, but you may be becoming more familiar with PR or program resources.scouts.qld.com.au. This is the national support website. So we're not going to build any Queensland specific instruction manuals. It didn't seem right because it's a national application, national program, national youth program. So we've said that if we find that we need to contribute any training materials, we're actually going to contribute them to the national pool here. There's 6 how-to guides and a whole series of various historical webinars and how-to videos here available. I can tell you there's about another dozen how-to guides that I've already reviewed that will be loaded up onto the site over the next couple of weeks as well. So pr.scouts.com.au. You might be saying, hey, Nick, this was really great. I think we need to have someone come and visit our DTM, or I'd like someone to come and work with our group. Unfortunately, there's only one of me, but thankfully there are a lot of our youth program ambassadors spread throughout the state. So if you would like someone to come to your DTM or region meeting or some other forum that you, or even just to your group, please get in touch with your local youth program ambassador. We've got them all demonstration IDs, and they're able to come and assist you on site if that's what you would like to have happen. Finally, as I get different questions, I've tried to preempt a lot of your questions. Tonight, you've come up with a whole stack of new ones, which I will find the answer to, and we'll keep adding them to this page as well as that list grows out. Finally, you've all got to know me a bit tonight, so bc.joeys@scoutsqueensland.com or scoutsqld.com.au. Please don't hesitate to drop me an email. Generally, I can get an answer I'll respond within 2 days to any questions. And again, if I don't have the answer, I will find someone that does and get back to you when I can get a response back to me. With that, any final questions? Cool. With that, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming and spending your Wednesday night with us, learning a bit about Scouts Terrain. I hope that it is something that will be useful both to you and your youth members. Please remember there is plenty of support out there. If in doubt, give us an email and we'll be happy to help you through the journey as this next tool that's available to us becomes available.
Great job, Nick, mate. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Nick,
You too.
that's great. Thank you, Nick. Good night
Bye.
now. Good night, everybody.
Right.
Good night, John Boy.
Thank you.
See you, Garth.
See you, Katrina. Catch up soon.
I'll head that way one day.
Yeah. One of these days.
One of these days.
Yeah.
See you, mate.
Okay, catch ya.